Turkey Al Sheikh and the lads are going over to the US, and it's quite a card. Number of world title fights, topped, of course, by Terence Bud Crawford, bidding for a world title at a fourth weight. I had to quickly think about that. Against Israil Madrimov up at 154 pounds. A number of other exciting fights on the card. 2 big heavyweight showdowns as well. Josh, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a real big challenge for Crawford on Saturday night. He's not. It feels like we've been waiting for this big opportunity against Crawford. It was a real impressive performance, one of the most impressive performances I've seen in a number of years against Errol Spence. But on Saturday night, I think he's going to be under some real pressure. I was watching an interview from Eddie Hearn earlier, and I think he has real belief in his man that he can do a job against Crawford. And yeah, what does that do for the pound for pound rankings as well? Lots of people have Crawford right at the top of those rankings, certainly within the top 3. And if we do get an upset victory on Saturday night, does he slot in? Does McIntosh slot in at number 1? I mean, he's certainly got to be considered up there if he gets a win against Terence Crawford. I can't admit I've seen a huge amount of him, but from everything that from all the conversations that I've had, he's going to cause some real problems, should I say, for Terence Crawford on Saturday night. So really exciting fight, and some fights down the card as well.
Yeah, I mean, Madrimov's a highly skilled fighter. He'll be the naturally bigger man as well. I think it's a step up in some ways, obviously, from the Errol Spence fight, which looked a lot easier for Crawford than most people predicted it would be. I would predict Crawford does get through it, but whether he sees his future beyond 154 pounds. And, we know Turkey Al Sheikh has said last week that he plans to make an offer to CANELO to fight Terence Crawford. We'll be talking about Canelo's fight in September later. But I guess that would be maybe late this year or early 2025. But he said it'll be a fair offer. And if Canelo doesn't accept it, he'll find another fight that Terence Crawford wants. But that is the biggest fight out there for Crawford. It's quickly become one of the bigger fights out there that Canelo might be willing to take as well, as he shows no desire to go back up to 175 pounds against the David Benavidez, a rematch with Bivol, or Artur Beterbiev if he goes through Bivol in their rescheduled fight as well. I think Crawford's an outstanding talent. I think he's a great all-rounder, not just because he can box out of both main stances, but just, he can be an aggressive power puncher. He can be a back foot boxer. He can mix it up. He can switch from head to body well. He's a complete operator. The only thing that might beat him is the size. He might go up too far and find that the skills that he relies on just aren't enough to compensate for the size difference as he goes up in weight. We've seen some fighters who have had the ability to do that, like some Manny Pacquiao, of course. Bernard Hopkins springs to mind as well. But Terence Crawford did start, super feather, I think. I know he won his first world title at lightweight against Ricky Burns in Glasgow. And he's quite long into his career now as well. Does he want to move up from, he's having this fight at 154, but it was only a year ago, it was at 147. The Canelo fight would presumably be at 168. That's a huge leap for someone at his age and stage of his career. But I would like to see it because Canelo, as I said, doesn't seem to want to go above 168. And I'd rather see Terence Crawford, and probably talk about this more in the Canelo section, against someone. I'd rather see Terence Crawford challenge Canelo than an Edgar Berlanga or a Chris Eubank Jr. But getting back to the card, Crawford, top fighter. I expect him to get past Madrimov, but in quite an exciting, competitive fight. So that'll be good. But then you've got the 2 heavyweight clashes on there as well, which sees the return of Andy Ruiz Jr., who a lot of people think is like the sleeper hit in the heavyweight division. If given the chance, he goes up against Jarrell Big Baby Miller, one of 2 big babies on the cards. No offense, guys. Don't come and fire me. But Jared Anderson, who also goes by that moniker, he's going up against Mike Bakole, which a lot of people see it as Jared Anderson's kind of coming out party, goes up against a noted contender. If he gets the job done in style, he could be America's next great hope. Deontay Wilder, 1 foot out the exit door, perhaps. But Bacoli will see this, and Billy Nelson, certainly as trainer, will see this as a huge opportunity for them to not rise up the ranks. I think Bacoli's already WBA #1 heavyweight, but to really make a name for himself, to become a marquee heavyweight, someone who can be on those Saudi shows in future, someone who can take on the high-profile names, will be mentioned alongside Fury, Usyk, Joshua, Zhang, and so on. Billy insists that Bacoli's been avoided, that he's hurt or had over a lot of the top heavyweights in sparring. Well, this is a big chance to prove it when it really counts. It's not his toughest fight since Michael Hunter beat him, but it's certainly the most important. And he will need to be at his very best if he's got a chance of defeating Jared Anderson, who incredibly talented, but largely unproven thus far. Bacoli's been in with the better opposition. He's more experienced. So we'll have to see how that one pans out. But Andy Ruiz Jr. coming back is exciting too. DB Cooper 1 says, the sad thing is how much the Yanks are sleeping on Madrimov because they've never heard of him. Tough night for Bud, who is getting old. Canelo has to be next. Yeah, for once I'm going to say it. I couldn't agree more with DB Cooper. So, yeah, I'm going to probably get a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Big Chunga says, I don't know what it is about that Josh. There's just something about him. Great chap. I'm not sure what that something is, but if you could bottle it, you'd be a millionaire. Umar Farouk agrees with DB Cooper 1 on Terence Crawford and fighting Canelo. Josh, what do you make of the heavyweight fights? But let's start with one we're probably more personally invested in because we've seen a lot of Martin Bacoli's career play out in the UK, and we interview Billy Nelson on a relatively regular basis. What do you make of that? Like, who I imagine, I haven't looked, but I imagine Jared Anderson's the favourite with the bookies. But what do you make of him against Martin Bacoli?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for both. I mean, we've heard for years now about what Bacoli's doing in sparring, and we've heard all these stories from Billy Nelson and from Bacoli himself, and in some cases from other against the top names in the world. And yeah, I mean, if he's able to produce what we're told he can produce, he's more than capable of beating and possibly stopping Jared Anderson. So whether Anderson has the capabilities to stop a world-class, world-level Martin Bacoli, we don't know. As you say, he's fairly unproven at world level, at least, Jared Anderson, but the potential and all the ingredients are there for him. But I think this is as much about what we found out about Jared Anderson as what we find out about Martin Bacoli. It's been a long time since we've seen him against somebody of this sort of level. You'd probably, as you say, throw it back to the Michael Hunter fight, but it's probably even a step up on that. So yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot about both fighters on Saturday night. And from a British point of view, obviously he's up in Scotland, up in Airdrie, is Martin Bacoli. I hope he's able to come through it. And then look, there's some big fights to be made for Bacoli, whether it's back here in the UK or on a Riyadh Season show. Made an appearance out there in Saudi before, out there in the US on Saturday, and maybe we'll see him again in another big fight over here.
DB Cooper 1 says, Billy Nelson nuking Lord Joshua David Green's OBE's Wi-Fi connection for daring to question the sparring champion. Yeah, I'm not sure Billy Nelson would have the technical knowledge to be able to sort his own Wi-Fi connection out, in my experience, never mind someone else's. Umar Farouk labels Bacoli the undisputed champion of sparring, which is interesting as well. I mean, the other big heavyweight fight, you've got to believe that if Andy Ruiz has got anything left, if he's anywhere near as good as he has been in the past, if he could still be a threat in this division, he takes care of Big Baby Miller, who put in, a solid effort against Daniel Dubois, but was ultimately well second best. You've got to believe that Ruiz can, get the job done. Mucky here says, hope Bacoli gets sparked out, bored of hearing about all these fantasy sparring sessions. Yeah, but surely if Bacoli sparks Anderson out, it adds credibility to those sparring stories. It shows that maybe he wasn't making stuff up or embellishing over time. But yeah, I mean, what were the sparring stories? That he stopped Usyk with a body shot, I believe, was one, and he dropped. Who was it he was supposed to have dropped? Was it Joshua he was supposed to have dropped? Or I can't remember now.
There
Yeah,
was a story with Joyce, wasn't there? I can't quite remember what that one was.
Yeah, well, I think they put out, Joyce's team put out some stuff where Joyce was doing well or something, and Martin had to be sick because he had food poisoning or something. Then they put out one where he was beating Joyce up, and I mean, getting the better of Joyce, particularly in sparring, doesn't look so good after Saturday night anyway. But yeah, I mean, Bacoli, he needs this, doesn't he? Because no one's going to be queuing up to give him opportunities, as Billy Nelson's always telling us. So this could be the only one, and he's in America against an American. So he's probably going to have to knock him out. And I'm sure that's what they've got planned. So let's see how that goes. But as I was saying, yeah, Andy Ruiz, you've got to think that he doesn't have too much of a struggle with Big Baby Miller. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd hope not. Daniel Dubois put in probably his career best performance against Israil Miller. So if he can sort of find that sort of performance, then he should get the job done. He's obviously got a great pedigree, Andy Ruiz, and I think if he can impose himself like Daniel Dubois did, we know Miller hasn't really got the gas tank. We don't really know what sort of shape that Ruiz is in. We'll see in a couple of days' time, but you'd like to think with the pedigree that Ruiz has got, he'd get Miller out of there.
Yeah, I would think so. Although Umar Farouk says Big Baby finally in shape this time. I think he's got a new trainer. Another great matchup that versus Ruiz. And DB Cooper 1 says, I can see why Turkey is backing Jared Anderson so much. USA boxing and by extension the world need an American big heavyweight. Can't rely on Mexicans and lightweight Gen Z Twitter beef. You've got such a way with words, DB Cooper. Yeah, I mean, Jared Anderson talks well, fights well, all-American guy. Yeah, I mean, the world's his oyster in that sense, but has he got that X factor? I'm not sure he has. You know, he's solid in all areas, but I haven't seen anything in terms of kind of flair or in-ring charisma that makes me think he could be the next big thing in the way that Deontay Wilder has been for a while. That doesn't mean he will lose to Bacoli, of course, but, you know, I'm not sure he's the heir apparent, if you like, to USA heavyweight boxing, although we shall see.